welcome to night 3 of the Elite 10. We're on the 3rd day already. And tonight we're getting, or this evening, this afternoon, we're getting into Construct, which is all about the structure of your book. So very exciting. Let me just get a better... There we go. So looking forward to getting into this. Hopefully a couple of people will jump on live and join me. If you're watching this in the recording though, please remember, pop your questions in and I'll get back to you and make sure that those questions are all answered. So before we get started, a couple of reminders. Please do this program in order. Go back. If this is the first one you've seen, stop. Go back and watch the welcome video, read the welcome post, and then go to the post that has all the links and just follow it through. Day 1, day 2, day 3, watch the training video, and then do the accountability post. Do it in order, and it's really, really, really important because this program has been created in an order for a purpose, and it's only through doing it in this particular order that you'll be able to really get the most out of it. So I know when people are jumping ahead, and this is for anyone who's in the 90-day challenge. I don't think we've got anyone on here actually in the 90-day challenge at the moment. But when we do the 90-day challenge, I always know who's on track and who's jumping ahead, because the people that are jumping ahead are experiencing overwhelm. And we talked about that in the mindset video last night. So make sure that you do it all in order. Go back and do them in order. Now, I wanted to say thank you for you guys that jumped on and did your accountability last night. Thank you for embracing the 3 C's. Thank you for your certainty. Thank you for your uncertainty as well. Thank you for your curiosity. And thank you for the vulnerability that you brought to it, because there was, and I did the same. I kind of came up with something new and went, oh, crap. So I thought it was, at first I was like, oh, this is difficult because it's my genius zone. I've done a lot of work to embrace it, but I still found it a crappy belief. And what I found interesting, and I'm wondering if you did as well, was as soon as I had awareness around it, the work was mostly done. So the awareness of having that crappy concept and that crappy belief, I was able to go, oh, no, wait, that's not right. And primarily shift it. Now I test it. And if I still need to shift further, I've got my next coaching session on Thursday night, so I already know what I'll be bringing up. So rock on. And I know for one of you on there, you're actually already taking inspired action and steps towards moving past and giving yourself evidence of a new belief, which is really cool. So Wendy, you're a rock star. All right, so let's get into tonight. Now, I need to pre-frame tonight quite heavily because we're doing 15 minutes, 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes of content in this particular part of the Squirrels program. So let me just remind you. So the Right Now program is a 7-step process, which is the Squirrels methodology. We start with S, which is spine, which we've done over the last 2 days. Today we're going to look at C, which is construct. Tomorrow we'll look at R, which is red carpet. We'll spend a couple of days on action. We'll spend a couple of days on WTF. We'll spend another day on loud and proud. And then finally success. And all of that's kind of unpacked for you, just go away, bug. Unpacked for you a little bit in the introduction post. So if you're wondering what Squirrels refers to, please go back to the intro post and the welcome video. I think I'll unpack it a little bit as well. So each of these steps, this is part of a 12-month program, guys. We're doing it in 10 days. So I trust that you get that you're getting gold, but you're getting like the tip of it. You're getting the golden powder from the edge. So Construct itself in the online program, just to give you a bit of a framework, and anyone who's in the Right Now program, 12-month program or the 90-day program or whatever, you know how much you have available in spine compared to what we've actually covered over the last 2 days. So Construct is even bigger. Construct is a really big part. So Construct in the online resources has over 3.5 hours of module training. 7 modules over 3.5 hours of training on all these things that we're going to cover today, and obviously a lot more depth. There is plus another just over an hour of bonus trainings specifically for the Construct part of the program. Then there is 11 templates plus 8 trim size templates, which is basically your book structure, your book trim already created. All of that's available in the program. So I trust that you get that the time that we have available today, I'm going to give you what I can, but you're only getting a tiny, you're just getting that, okay? Beautiful. So having said that, I want to give you as much gold as possible today. So we're going to cover 3 areas, 3 very important areas. One is what to include in your book or your article or whatever your intention is, or your whatever you put down as your intention for this particular program. We're going to look at deep versus shallow, which very much refers to book, but very still relevant for articles, etc. And we're also going to look at the legal stuff, which is, it's a great deal of fun. It's essential. It is really, really essential. So let's get straight into it. We're going to start with what to include. So I've already mentioned about what do they want and what do they need. I'm not going to go into that in great detail. If you need to, go back and watch the training we did on day 1 around audience, because we talked about what do they want and what do they need, and we kind of clarified what those both mean. So the first thing to do when you're working out, hey Susanna, the first thing to do when you're working out what content to include in your article, book, whatever it may be, is think about those things. What do they want? What do they need? Now, here's what I recommend you do. Brain dump it. So many people go, okay, so this is going to be my book title, and then I'm going to have these chapter titles, and they try and do it backwards. They try and do it from like the big thing down. Whereas I find if you just ask yourself those 2 questions, and let me just frame this. Right now, this is much more specific to non-fiction. Fiction has another level of stuff to deal with. But this does work for non-fiction. I have used it for non-fiction, but it is more specific to, for fiction, but this is more specific to non-fiction, okay? So real life. What do they want? What do they need? Brain dump this onto a piece of paper. And I actually have, remember on the first day I said to you guys that I'm using my own program to create this program. So I'm using the Right Now program and the 7 steps to create this 10-day program. And so I actually bought one of my days here so I can show you how I do it and how I literally did the brain dump. And I forgot like that I had this because I do it so naturally. And I was actually looking for a book brain dump that I did that was on an A4 piece of paper, and I saw this and went, oh my god, I'll use that. Like, that's smart. So brain dump it. What I mean by brain dump is literally just dump your ideas onto a piece of paper. It's not neat, it's just bleh. And it's literally, what do they need, what do they want, what do they need? So I've got, and it's not in depth. I've got things like, and some of these are going to sound familiar for you because this is from yesterday's one actually. So I've got beliefs, creativity, don't know what they don't know, vulnerability, discipline, trust in self, consistency, time, over-commitment, self-sabotage. I can't even read what I've written in that one. Perfectionism, overwhelm. Sound familiar? So the first thing I did was I brain dumped all those ideas, right? And then what I did, and I'm going to come in a little bit closer for you so you can see this, I then took 3 texters because I already knew I was going to do 3 sections. You might have noticed that's what I'm doing. Every night, 3 things that we're covering. So all I did was I started putting them together and going, what relates to what? So all the yellow ones relate together, all the blue ones relate together, and all the green ones relate together. And then I used that to go, okay, so what's the overriding point of those? And from that, I came up with convenient inconveniences, beliefs, and embracing writer's mindset. So let me show you from yesterday. So this is actually the structure that I used for yesterday's training video, right? And that all comes from this. So I brain dumped this, I put them all into groupings, and then I set a heading for each one. Now the thing is, I set the heading, but then under the headings, the actual information that I'm using is what I've already written on here. So I've pretty much created my whole structure on this one little piece of paper from simply brain dumping what you guys want and what you guys need. That's it, okay? Now, obviously, there's a lot more to it. I'll remind you, 3.5 hours of training, blah, 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 which, Susanna, you have access to. However, This, particularly when it comes to articles, this is the bulk of it. There's a training that's on the Right Now program that is actually about brain dump. It's how to do this process, in more depth, more things to think about, and I share some like screenshots of mine in that. So brain dumping, gathering things together and then attaching them to an overriding title is pretty much how I do it, right? Yeah, Susanna, you're gonna love that brain dump one. So once you guys, so Susanna and everyone else who's on here, once you have finished Spine, because nobody has actually moved into Construct yet, you guys are going to be blown away when you get to Construct. So once you finish the Spine resources and you complete the Spine check-in, which is now available for you, once you've done that and you've got access to Construct, all of this stuff I'm talking about will be available for you. Now, there's another really cool resource on there as well called the Beat Sheet. This is kind of the heart of the program. And what this thing does is you take this, you pop them into the Beat Sheet, you tell it the word count, and it will actually calculate for you how many words you should roughly allocate to each section so that you get really close to your target. Now, obviously do that without attachment to outcome, but the Beat Sheet is freaking magic, if I do say so myself. I've been working on it for a year, and it's amazeballs. Yeah, oh my gosh, yeah, absolutely. And Susanna, so for whatever your intent is, oh, Kerry, sorry I'm late. No, not good enough. Glad you could join us. So for any of you that are doing an article for, say, the Thought Collective, which is actually what my intention is for this 10-day program, I'm going to write an article for the Thought Collective. This is the process to use. Just do that. Now, here's a couple of things that you have to keep in mind. Choose the number of points or the number of subjects that's appropriate for what you're presenting. Okay, so for me, I literally had 3 main points, and then pay attention to this. You'll start noticing it. Within 3 main points, I have 3 topics, 3 subjects. They're all pretty much on here, but that's where the content comes from, is just covering those details. So I've got 3 main points and then 3 topics, and that I know will give me about a 15 to 20 minute presentation that I can go through with you guys. Now, we're going, and I'll go into deep and shallow in a moment, we're going very shallow with the amount of information that I give you, but I'm giving you as deep as I can at a shallow level. Now, I'll explain what that means in a moment, okay? But first of all, I did want to mention as well that when you're writing a content piece, so social media, for example, so just say you're doing a Facebook post, only have 1 point. 1 point and maybe, you know, 3 subpoints that are evidence of that point. Your subpoints are evidence of the point. So 1 point, that's it, just 1. If you're doing an article, say, you know, 800-word article, 1,200-word article, you want to go with probably 3 points, depending how deep you want to go. If you're going super deep, you might only do 1 point still. But if you're doing something like I'm doing right now, 3 points. Now, realistically, if I take what I'm saying to you guys and turn it into a written article, it's probably going to be about 2,000 words. So 3 points and the 3 sections, I trust that you're seeing that that's enough. That's good. That is a good place to be, yeah? Let me just check what we've got here. About to drive, so listening from this point. All good, Susanna, thank you. So when you're writing a book, here's the thing. How many points do you include? Well, your point, so the overarching one, so say all these yellow ones becomes a chapter. So all my blue ones become a chapter, all my green ones become a chapter. And then these are subjects within the actual chapter. So that's how you can do it for a book too, just giving you a bit of a shortcut there, yeah? So when you're doing a book, how many chapters are you going to do? Are you going to do 5 chapters? Are you going to do 20 chapters? And Kerry, I think you're really going to like what we're going to go into right now, actually. Give me 1 sec. Because now we're going to go into deep versus shallow. When you're writing a book, you need to consider it's not just how much content to put in there. It's also how deep you're going to go on that content. What I mean by deep is are you going, or what I mean by deep versus shallow is, are you going to have a whole heap of chapters with just a little bit of information, or just a few chapters with really deep information where you're unpacking it and you're getting to the heart of it? How do you know what to do? Well, here's the thing. You've already looked at who your audience is. We did that back on day one. Your audience will dictate whether you go shallow or whether you go deep. Can your audience handle deep? It's really the question. If your audience can only handle shallow, and this is, think of this, the best way to think of this is in the thought process of personal development. So someone who's already done a lot of work around personal development, they can go deep. They can handle the deep stuff. They can handle going to one of the universal fears straight away. You can go deep. But if not, if they haven't done much work and they're very much stuck in a lot of fear, then you want to go shallow, because you don't want to drown them. Okay, so imagine a lake, right? Imagine a lake. A lake has a bottom that's quite deep and then edges that are quite shallow. So are you going to swim across the top and just give them lots and lots and lots of information, or are you going to dive down and just go straight to the bottom and give them some really deep information? Don't do both. Don't do shallow and deep. Don't do wide and deep. So do shallow and wide, or deep and narrow. Don't do both. Because if you do both, you'll drown your audience, and you'll drown yourself, because you'll drown yourself in overwhelm. So decide now, what does your audience need, and what are you going to do? Are you going to go wide and shallow, or are you going to go deep and narrow? Now, here's the thing. They both serve a purpose. Apart from the audience, if you do shallow and wide, each of those little points across there can become a deeper book. So if you do shallow and wide, and you did say 10 chapters, which would be shallow and wide, 10 chapters, you can't go that deep, right? 10 chapters, you've really got 10 books you can now dive really deep into, because you can unpack that more. If you go, say, 5 chapters, which is pretty much what I do. Every time I do nonfiction, it tends to be 5 chapters, because I like to go deep. So if you do 5 chapters and you go deep, there's all these shoot off points where I can do more. So I can do another book over here, like this related book. So it always gives you avenues into other books, whichever way you go. And the main thing is, what can your audience handle? So for me, my audience can handle going deep. You guys can handle going deep. So I go deep. With this 10-day program, I'm going as deep as I can in the time that we have. So it's actually quite shallow. It's like diving in and going, oh, we don't have time to go any further. That's what's happening, yeah? I trust that makes sense. For those of you that have the Right Now program, you've got the deep dive. You've got the scuba gear. You've got all the scuba gear on, and you're going down there. And at the same time, I'm actually digging further and making it bigger and making it deeper as well, which is my continuous promise to you guys as well. What else do I need to cover on deep versus shallow? Yes, consider the problem when you're thinking about shallow and deep. And when you're thinking about your book in general, this is so problem. Think about the problem, because here's the thing. You might have noticed that we tend to attract the problem that we have the most. So we tend to attract those that are struggling, and I use that word very carefully, with the same thing that we're beating our heads against. So for instance, if you're beating your heads against overwhelm, and then you write something about overwhelm, which is another thing we tend to do because we know a lot about it, because we're experiencing it. So just so I was experiencing a lot of overwhelm, so I decided to write a book about overwhelm. The last thing I want to do is overwhelm the people that are going to try and read that book. If I'm experiencing overwhelm and I'm really good at overwhelm, I'm probably going to go, I need to put everything in. And I'm like 12 chapters, 14 chapters. Number one, my audience is not going to read it because they're going to look at it and feel overwhelmed. And number two, you're never going to finish it because you're going to overwhelm yourself. So consider the problem that you're dealing with in your book as well, and don't amplify it. I trust that makes sense. I'm hoping that makes sense. Please let me know if there's any confusion or any questions around that. Can you explain points, please? Kerry, more context, explain points. Do you mean the points as in the points to include in your book? Because if so, I've actually already covered that, so I'm not going to go back onto it. We covered it just before you came on. So if you're talking about what I was saying just as you came on about how many points to include, If that's what you're referring to, we covered it earlier on, so I trust, you know, you're cool. We're not going to go back and do it, but you can definitely watch the recording. If it's something else though, please let me know, give me a bit of clarity, and we'll go into it. Cool. While you're responding to that, let's go into the next one, which is legal stuff. The fun stuff. It's not that bad. It's really not. It's just the essential stuff that can save your butt. So number one, I want to clarify the difference between copyright and copyright. So copyright with an R, so copyright C-O-P-Y-R-I-G-H-T, and copyright C-O-P-Y-W-R-I-T-E. Confusion between these is quite common. Let me just see what you've written there, Kerry. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, cool. So it's all there, Kerry. When you go back and watch it, if there's anything that's not clear, if you have any more questions, definitely pop them in and I will 100% help you out. You know that. So, all right. So copyright, this is the easy way, right? Copyright, R-I-G-H-T, or copyright, W-R-I-T. Right, R-I-G-H-T, is your right, your ownership. It's your right to be recognized for doing the work. Whereas W-R-I-T-E is what you've written. It's the actual written words. Okay, so like copyright is an ad term, for example. So you'll do copyright when you're writing up something to sell your book. Copyright is your right, R-I-G-H-T, for nobody to steal your work. So here's the beautiful thing about copyright in Australia with an R. We're now talking about, from now on, whenever I say copyright, I'm talking about copyright, R-I-G-H-T. In Australia, it's automatic. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Don't let anyone tell you that you've got to pay for it. I've heard people actually in marketing and people that are in really, you know, kind of high positions in marketing say, make sure that you go and purchase copyright. And there's a bit of confusion around that, and I get it. You don't need to purchase copyright. Yes, you need to purchase perhaps a trademark if you want to trademark your title, if it's related to your business or anything like that. And you may need to look into purchasing copyright, R-I-G-H-T, if you're going into potentially another country, okay? That's it. In Australia, it's automatic, it's done. The moment you write something, in fact, everything I'm saying right now to you has automatic copyright here in Australia. You cannot take anything that I've said on this recording and claim it as your own. Having said that, like, you know, rock on, but but this is automatic copyright. And it's interesting because anything you post on Facebook has automatic copyright, and a lot of people don't realize that or know that. So it's very, very interesting. So when you're sharing something, make sure that you're giving notification, you're giving correct referencing and acknowledgement to the person that you've actually used it from. This is why whenever I post a meme, I will have, most of the time, I'll have I Am Academy on it, so that, because that's my copyright. If it gets shared, I'm happy with that, like rock forth, but it's also got my details on there, so I actually have the acknowledgement that it's mine and it's my creation. Simple as that. And I recommend that you guys do the same. It's good for a couple of reasons. Number one, retains your copyright. Number two, it's freaking awesome for your branding as well, yeah? And when it comes to writing a book, you really want to start building your brand right now. Even if you're a fictional writer and you want to be a career writer, you need to build your brand. It is not your book that sells, it is your brand. Great example, Stephen King. We all know Stephen King. Well, I hope so. He put out a book under a different name. It sold bugger all copies. The moment that was leaked and people found out it was his, it sold 1 million copies. It wasn't the book that sold, it was his brand. Stephen King is his brand. I trust that makes sense. What else did I want to cover? Copyright, yes, defamation. Be aware that if you mention anyone, and not even if you say their name, but if you mention anyone and they're recognizable to themselves or somebody else, and you put them in a bad light, if you claim that they've done something that hasn't been proven, okay, that they haven't been arrested for example, if you claim they've done something illegal, if you tarnish their reputation, or it's viewed that you've tarnished their reputation, you can be sued for defamation. Now, again, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm going to give you some details, but you do need to be aware of that. So if you are talking about somebody, if you're using, for example, a case study or whatnot, you need to get permissions. So for those of you in the Right Now program, you actually have permission forms available to you. When you hit construct, you have those forms. They're all there for you. There's 4 different permission forms to make sure your butt's covered, and there's a whole training on exactly to know how to use them, when to use them, etc. Okay, so you're taken care of. So, and that goes for photos too. That goes for if somebody's recognizable in a photo, you need to have their permission to use that photo too. So you need permission to use anybody, and that goes back to the copyright, as I said before, Australia automatic copyright. So the legal stuff, you automatically have copyright on anything that you create. Be careful of defamation, and that's basically just stick to the facts. If you're sharing a story, keep it to yourself and try not to bring somebody else in unless it is imperative and either you have their permission or what you're saying has evidence to back it up. Now you can go to copyright.org and there's more information about what actually defines defines defamation. For those of you in the Right Now program, you actually have a template in Construct which is about defamation law, so you're taken care of. And the other thing is references. So you have automatic copyright, so does everyone else. If you reference a work or if you use anybody else's work, you need to reference it. You need to acknowledge that it is their work. So a couple of things to be aware of. Whose permission do you need when you're writing your work? Even if it's an article, do you need anyone's permission or are you good to go? Yeah. Be aware of defamation laws. What is your work? So what's the work that you've done and what is the work that you've got from someone else? So if somebody else has done the work, give them the acknowledgement. Simple as that. And this actually goes for yourself as well. I've referenced myself in my books many times because I'm using something I've said previously. So I have to reference myself. Now, I'm not going to run out and sue myself, but I still have to do that. That's actually part of the copyright laws. And lastly, when in doubt, because I'm not a lawyer, don't ask me about these ones. Go to copyright.org.au. Give them a call. They've got a free legal service available. They've got heaps of information on the website. They're amazeballs. So that's copyright.org.au. Again, that link is available for you guys in the Right Now program in the trainings in Construct. That's everything. So any questions at all? Any questions, let me know. And while I'm waiting for any questions to pop up, I'll quickly let you know what your task is going to be today. And I've just realized I didn't auto post the accountability post. So I'll do that as soon as I get off. The accountability today is to work out what are your topics or what are your chapters, etc. So if your target is to do like an 800-word article, for example, and you decide you're going to do 3 points, what are those 3 points? What are the 3 topics? So go back to the start of this, watch it again as to how to actually come up with that. Do your brain dump and post what your 3 topics are. If you're doing something quite short that's maybe 500 words or you're doing just a content piece, make it just 1 point if that suits you. If you're looking at doing an entire book outline, see how you go, rock on. Like there's a lot more, as I said, there's a lot more resources in the online program. So if you're not in that program, I've still given you something that you can work with. So do the brain dump, see what you come up with. You might really, really surprise yourself. So have fun with doing that. Looks like we don't have any questions. I know that some of you guys are on the run, so you're kind of not in the position where you can put questions in. So if you do have any questions, please pop them in the comments and I will come back and look after those. Now, it might not be till tomorrow because I've got my writers meet up tonight. So as soon as I do the accountability post, I'll basically be out of here. So I will come back and answer any questions tomorrow. So if you're watching this on the recording, make sure you put your questions in. And please remind you again, this was the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Construct, but I've given you some pretty solid stuff to work with. What to include, what do they want, what do they need, brain dump, circle, get your points. Okay, 1 point for a post, 3 for an article as an example. Deep versus shallow, which you're going to do, choose and only do 1. Don't drown your reader, don't drown yourself. Legal stuff, you have automatic copyright, be aware of defamation, make sure that you reference any other works. And post your accountability. All right, we're done. Oh, I have 10 seconds until 30 minutes, so I'm going to close off now. Thanks for joining me. Until next time, rock forth with awesomeness.